Hey, you two, welcome back to Mind Your Mind with Just Justified. So, this space is really supposed to be a place for thoughtfulness, insight, and just a little bit more research and accountability. Now, the topic that I'm gonna tackle today, if you saw the thumbnail, it's called the N word. Now, what is the N word? So I'm not going to hold you. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. So the N word is narcissism. I know some people are probably like, because we've heard about it enough, haven't we? Um, Now, I know I've seen it so much on social media. And to be quite honest, narcissism is a valid thing. But sometimes when you get these topics in mainstream, it kind of dilutes it and take it away, or take it, or people tend to take things for granted and probably even try to label everyone as a narcissist. So I first came across, like, you usually know about this, you think it's someone just in their mirror all the time, just thinking about themselves, and that's it, where there's like a lot more that go into this. And what I found is, unless you've actually experienced a narcissist, whether it's a parental unit, whether it's friendship, whether it's relationship, whether it's work related, like as in a boss, a coworker, whatever the situation is, you don't really understand how deep this can go. Um, it can really ruin lives if you really know about it. And I just want to kind of dive into it a little bit now. I had my own experiences with people that I consider narcissists. But even before I say that, let me get into a little quick disclaimer of my own, because a lot of people use this, and of course we know, I do not qualify to officially diagnose, but I've seen significant evidence through research and experience. The term narcissist in our society is often misused and has been diluted, as I said before. So keep in mind that narcissism is a trait, while the narcissistic personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of, sorry, I kind of was reading my disclaimer, but kind of lost where I was. But the term narcissist in our society is often misused and have been diluted. Keep in mind that narcissism is a trait, while the narcissistic personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of behaviors that impact all areas of life and functioning. It is possible to have narcissistic traits and not meet the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, or otherwise known as NPD. All right. So let's get into it. Um, so, as I said before, even though you have the traits, like, because there is a level of healthiness that comes with it, as in that's where we get our self-worth and um being able to push ourselves and everything like that. So there is like a level of, I'm going to tell you real quick. Now I'm going through some of my notes. If you hear anything, that's my rabbit. All right. So it's, with healthy narcissism, there is relation with more so like our self-esteem and our self-worth. It's like taking pleasure in one's own beauty, in the working of our mind, and the accomplishments of jobs well done. But there is, as we all know, as extremes. I always say, like, even when you think of something as healthy as drinking water, there are extremes even to that. For instance, you can drink too much water, and that can negatively affect you. So we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about narcissism. It's like a spectrum. There is the healthier side, which is needed with how we think of ourselves, the value we have for ourselves, self-worth, as I said before. Then we have the extreme, where that's technically all we think about, despite everyone else. Forget them, and you're kind of just soothing self without any care or empathy for anyone else in this society that we live in. So let's go to the the definition of narcissism. If you are familiar with psychology, then you'll know about the DSM-5. I don't remember if it's up to 5 right now, or if it went to 6 yet. I'm not sure, but last I knew, there's the DSM-5, where it has like a lot of mental diseases and things like that, and it'll give a checklist and criteria to kind of see, like, if the majority of what you check off, that's pretty much where you land, and if you are eligible to be diagnosed with being diagnosed. So here's the thing, though. The crazy part about narcissism personality disease is that the numbers may not be as high as they really are, because as I learn more about it, I'm like seeing a lot of traits in many people. Not saying that they have the personality disorder, but I'm seeing a lot of traits. So the problem with that is, though, is that the numbers may be low with the diagnosis only because people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they don't think anything is wrong with them. So they will not go out and seek the help that they need. When you consider the dynamics of this disease, like, a lot of times, let's say in like even a marriage, a partner who may have NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, when they have NPD, they may go to a therapist only because there is like a breakdown in something, like, let's say their marriage. They want to prolong it, and then they'll do whatever they can to go to the therapist, or psychiatrist, or whoever the counselor is. They will prolong that as much as possible, and then we'll probably, like, going to a therapist will kind of be like the last resort. So it tends to kind of go under the radar, as in to say, yeah, you may have this boss that was really like an a-hole to some people, and then as soon as you're seeing it and it's like horrible, and you're like, oh, that you'll probably be like, they're heartless, whatever, and then but that's working for them, because especially in the workplace, narcissism kind of helps propel, because it's like, especially if you're trying to get to the top, forget everybody under you. I'm not saying everybody on the top is a narcissist, but what I am saying is that you'll find a lot more in like high positions and jobs, versus, lower. You'll find them anywhere, but I'm just saying that you'll definitely find a high number of people with narcissistic traits, like a high number of narcissistic traits. So anyway, according to the DSM-5, it is characterized by grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy toward other people. So that's a definition of narcissism in the DSM-5. And there's um a lot of traits that's on there that you could kind of look through and see if that's what they if you know, sometimes to just check it off. You can go through and see how that may apply and move accordingly. Now, as I said before, I am not qualified to officially diagnose anyone, but here's how I look at it. If someone is in front of me, they're sneezing, they're coughing, they have runny nose, they have the jitters, they're having hot and cold flashes, and whatever the situation is, I'm going to more likely not than not think that they are suffering from something, whether it is the cold, the flu, whatever it is, but they're suffering from something. So I see the things leading up to whatever that sickness is, the symptoms. So this is how it is with narcissistic personality disorder to me. I will see a lot of the traits, and then when it's so much, like, you know, there's some people, as you learn about it, you're like, wow, that person that person displays so many traits. But you know, I still can't officially diagnose. Like, someone probably exhibiting the stuff for the scenario that I used before, they probably wouldn't be officially diagnosed until they get to a doctor, and then the doctor is able to prescribe to diagnose them. So that's kind of how it is with narcissistic personality disorder. So I'm like, if I'm seeing such a cluster, I'm like, either you may have, I'm not saying they do, but either you may have the NPD, or you just have a high number of traits. And to me, that's still valid, because toxic is still toxic, you know what I mean? And it's not something to just use lightly. So whether they are officially narcissists, quote unquote, probably, you know, everyone use it in media, or just even toxic people, it's still something that needs to be addressed or dealt with, or boundaries, or whatever the situation is. So it has nothing to do with, okay, just because they're not officially diagnosed. Toxic is toxic, and if you see the traits and, you know, it's causing problems, it needs to be addressed. All right, let's move on to some things that are called that some different types in the common realm of narcissism. When people talk about narcissism and stuff like that, that some types of narcissism. So some types are, and I'm sure you probably, maybe you may have heard of it, maybe you may have not, but these are some that you may have heard of. For one is grandiose. Grandiose is like a classic type, and is characterized by inflated sense of self-importance, need of admiration. They crave attention, power, and success, and are usually extroverted, assertive, and less agreeable. Okay, so that's typical. Like, then we have covert. Covert are the ones that they kind of attack, like, without you kind of even seeing them coming, really. So those are they can be less confident and more self-conscious. They tend to be introverted, anxious, and depressed. Although they desire admiration, they are also sensitive to criticism, and can become defensive or hostile when threatened. All right, so that's covert or vulnerable, interchangeable. Then we also have malignant. Now, malignants are so it says it's the most dangerous type, combining features of both grandiose and vulnerability with a sadistic streak. They lack empathy, seek power, and exploit others for personal gain. They may also exhibit paranoia and psychotic tendencies. Malignant. So, scary. That's a scary type. Now, I have some experience. Let me just preface everything before I go on to some clips. I have some experience with narcissism. Um, like my son's father, he I believe may have been, but definitely exhibit a high number of the traits, narcissistic traits. And with those types, co-parenting is non-existent. Trust me, believe me. And that's one situation. And then also my ex-husband. My ex-husband, I believe also, he exhibited a lot as well. And funny thing is, quick anecdote, I found out more so about narcissism, like deeply started researching and everything from a psychology class when I was in college. Now, I was in this class and they were talking about the cluster B personalities. And with that, at that time I was already going through it. Like, I'm the type of person that I am. When things are going weird, I'm looking at myself like, what am I doing wrong? What's going on? And but then there was everything like silent treatment. It was like a whole lot going on. There was the gaslighting, there was the and it started off with the love bombing, and then it started deteriorating at some point, and then I'm wondering what is going on. I'm looking at things change so fast. I will probably go into more stories later on. I'm just going to keep it kind of surface. But I just started noticing a lot. And, there were messages on the post. There was this, there was that. There was a lot going on at some point. And, I remember that he even got me to the point of curled up in a ball in my closet. I was never like that for as much as I can remember. It's like curled up in a ball in my closet, bawling, crying from things that this man put me through. But I was like determined to try and fight and make it work and see what's going on. And then I was like in this psychology class, and I'm like, whoa, a lot of the things that they described when they were talking about specifically narcissism, personality disorder, was laid out before me. And I was like, I'm experiencing this. It was like, I felt at that moment, it was like an awakening. Like, I felt heard, I felt seen. And I was like, so all the time where I'm just like thinking that I'm just like the hardest person to get along with, when I know I'm trying and I'm not disagreeable. I am not at all disagreeable. I'm not one of those. I'm actually just starting to kind of embrace my voice a lot more. So when I saw this, and I was like, wow, this is what I'm experiencing. I started researching a lot more, listening to a lot of psychologists on that topic on YouTube, reading books, things like that. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I feel like a lot of people who have not been through this do not necessarily understand. They probably were like, okay, I experienced this person and something's off with them, or, something's not right, or that person's horrible, or whatever the situation is, but they do not know how crazy making narcissists can be to you. And they don't know how horrible, how much of a monster they can be, you know? So let's get started with some clips that I have. And this is my first one. This is an example of gaslighting. Just to kind of see it in motion. So if you ever heard of the show Love is Blind, this is a clip from Love is Blind. I'm sure people probably heard of it before. All right, just give me a moment.
And I asked a question that may have been out of bounds for you. How did that make you feel? Well, you were throwing out questions, black or white, summer or spring, right? And everyone I answered, boom, 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 boom. You threw out choked or spanked. I said, hey, that's not a question I'm willing to answer. My answer for you caused you to say, I don't know how this got sexual. I wasn't coming from a sexual place. The general population of the world would agree that those three words woven together has a sexual connotation. But I will not continue to sit here and debate with you. So from this moment forward, we can change the subject. Right. Or tonight's state will be over. Got you. Things got a little intense, but you gave a piece of it. The whole totality of the conversations, we was rattling off questions. So if you want to give me the respect of asking me if I meant sexual or not, you should have done that, and that's perfectly fine. And I said what I had to say.
Now, what I love about her response, let's start with that. If you noticed, she told him, like he said, oh, she was like, okay, we were having regular conversation. And then as soon as he rattled off, oh, like, they're asking questions and he's like, choked or spanked. She's like, I'm not willing to go there with you. And then he's like, oh, like trying to play oblivious. Like, that wasn't sexual. I don't know why your mind will go there. And I'm like, really? Just as she said, typically when you hear those words together, choked or spanked, those three words woven together, as she said, they most likely mean, they usually have a sexual connotation to it. So now you're gaslighting her saying, I didn't mean anything sexual by it. For real? You didn't mean anything sexual by that? Are you for real? So I loved how she ended it, though. If you saw that scene, he insisted on continuing with that conversation. She done sipped her last sip of her drink, got up, and left. And that's exactly how you need to treat them sometimes. Do not give them your energy. You're not gaslighting me. I know my reality with what it was said. Don't try to tell me otherwise. And I just love that reaction. She sipped her drink and left. No, we don't have to deal with it. And that happens a lot in narcissistic relationships, dynamics, because it's anyone, family, friends, work situations, whatever it is, that happens often. And it doesn't even have to be in like a narcissistic umbrella. Under that umbrella, it can be naturally. People can gaslight you too. So even though if you're not dealing with a narcissistic per se, you can still acknowledge the toxicity in what they're doing, point it out, leave, whatever, but you can still acknowledge it. So I'm going to go to something else. Let's go to my next clip. And this one has to do with, hold on. All right. This one has to do with love bombing. Now, love bombing is kind of crazy because then when you're just getting into a relationship, it's hard to kind of differentiate sometimes because you want that, outpour of attention and someone showing their interest, buying you flowers, whatever the situation is. You kind of want that, right? You want that attention from the person that you're interested in and you're interested in them. Now, love bombing can be a little tricky because it can hold on, that was the wrong one. It can go, it could really mislead you because a person may use that as a tactic to get closer to you, but not really, um, of course, don't think you in that regard. All right, so I'm going to play that right now.
Love bombing. Number one, they tell you the most beautiful compliments. They love you so much. You're the best thing they've ever seen, the best thing that's ever happened to them. Two, they lavish you with tons of gifts or trips. Number three, they are quick to have you commit. Very, very quick. Move in with me. Let's get into a relationship. I love you very early on. Four, they mirror your desires, your hopes, your dreams, everything that you've ever looked for in the future. They make sure to have very similar ones, so you're thinking completely compatible. Number five, they start isolating you. It's so little, it's like a little prick at first, but they quickly start isolating you and making you feel like, wait a second, is that person really my friend? Hold on, they said that we should take it slow, but I met the love of my life. Why would I take it slow? And slowly they start telling you, see, that person doesn't like me. Why are you gonna hang around them?
So as you can see, so there are like different signs of love bombing. When you see what number one was the compliment. Now that is like for real. I experienced where it was like a lot of complimenting at the beginning, but this was like complimenting only on the surface, not like as you learn and different aspects of yourself, and then it can be excessive at times, but I don't know how it is for every single person, but what I experienced for sure. So it can be like, I'm one who I get a little bit weird with compliments. I don't know if a lot of people feel that, but for me, I feel a little bit weird with compliments. So it can be a little bit overwhelming at times, but nothing wrong with compliments. There's nothing wrong, but it can be used as a tactic from a narcissist. Then there was also gifts and trips and things like that. So with my situation, I was definitely there were grocery being bought, there was flowers. Like this particular person, my ex-husband, when it was leading up to my birthday actually, and we were dating for a little bit by then, and it was leading up to my birthday, this man had flowers mailed to my house every single day leading up to my birthday. Flowers and teddy bears and things like that. My house was smelling like a flower shop. Like it was a lot. Which was pleasant because I love flowers. So it wasn't a problem. So, yeah, he got it right with picking out, but that's something typical. A lot of women like flowers, so that was like a good guess with that. But I remember, and that was one of the things. So my family at that time was seeing all these things being delivered to my house and everything. And I remember my dad, who wasn't really proactive since, like like one before. Other than that, he hasn't really been, not proactive, but not really considering of anybody that I've dated. He was like, with this guy, yes, that he's the one, and that, and he was encouraging. So now with all this happening, with the gifts being delivered, all this other stuff, and and especially another part was that he at one point was given Bible study by my parents. So, it was that, and the encouragement of my father actually liking someone that I was with, and all that kind of, and I'm not blaming my father, please believe me, but I was just saying, it was just like the dynamic of all of that kind of pushed a little bit more for that relationship to move forward in a sense. So, it was interesting because it turned out even too, here's a little fun fact for later. It turned out that I found out that the grocery that he used to help me with, basically he asked me back for all that money later on, well, after we were married. Like basically when I got my first income tax return after we were married, he asked me back for a good chunk of that check. And he said he proposed it like, okay, you know what, when we were dating and stuff, you know, all the time, I was buying grocery, I was charging it, and then you know, I gotta put that back and all stuff, but you know, I had to do that to help you out and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he didn't have to do that. I didn't even ask him. But who's going to deny if somebody's offering to buy your groceries and all that? Who's going to deny? So why? And then now I didn't know that it was uh having to repay it in the future. I mean, you know, and that's the kind of stuff that psychs with your mental, as in to say, like, now every time someone gives you something, is it a gift for real? Or would I have to give it back? It always has like a little thing in the back of your head now when you receive gifts. Would I have to give it back at some point? Or is this like a gift for real? So, you know, narcissism can kind of play with your head a little bit. Um, like quickly committing. Yeah, we were dating for almost a year, not quite a year yet. And that's when, well, not even the year, because some people that's like a normal timeline, but for us, he was the one who told me he loved me first. And I didn't really tell him right away because, you know, I was still trying to feel him out, trying to understand him. And he was, um, he was the first one to tell me he loves me. And then I was like, and I remember writing this in my journal. Like I document a lot of my experiences just so, you know, from memory and all that. And I didn't tell him back right away when he first started telling me, but he said, it's okay. You don't have to tell me back right now. You don't have to tell me back right now. It will come. It will come, you know? And I thought that was kind of, you know, it was odd. But then you're also like, okay, but I really like him. Cause then that, you know, at that time with the love bombing, he's also really attentive and all that, not knowing that he was gathering information, but really attentive and listening to me and things like that, and pouring into certain little things. Like I told him I love pasta, and he picked that up and took me to this really cool place in New York City, Manhattan, that sold pasta, like different pasta dishes and things like that, which I thought was awesome. But you know, of course, that's a part of the whole love bombing thing. um Mirror your desires. So that was one thing too that was big for me, because he basically saw how I was about my faith, and he basically mirrored that. Like he showed a lot of interest in the Bible and all that stuff, which tapered off later on in the relationship. So I was like, okay, he showed himself, so he was coming to church you know, more often and things like that. I sing in church and I'm very active. You know, I had some things that I let in and all that. So him attending church with me was a plus. And then, you know, after some time, then it tapered off. I was like, okay, you know, what's going on? You know, all the whole that he used to have his Bible in, have his Bible and was reading, and that tapered off. And I, you know, I just did a mental note. I was like, okay, there's definitely a shift with that. And this is not the like most severe things that I experienced, but you know, I just remember that, as she said, like mirror your desires. So there were things that I did see that he mirrored, just because he kind of, you know, wanted it to look like if we were on the same page in this relationship. All right, then she said number 5, they isolate you. So that one was a big one for me. I have a best friend, and from moving from one state to the other, I barely knew anyone. And so this friend I talked to often. Now, as things started getting worse, when I was on the phone for him, I don't know if he thought that we were talking about him, which probably at the time we were, as a sense, because I for a long time I didn't tell anybody of what I was going through. I was going through it by myself. Didn't tell not a soul. Then when I finally got the courage to tell my best friend, I told my best friend and I told my cousin. My best friend was like, I'm glad when I started telling her, because then she became that support system for me, and encouragement and spiritual upliftment and things like that. So but what he started to do, mind you, I always talk to my friend. That was like a common name that he even knew in the household. But not like extremely excessive, but you know, that was my one friend that I was so close to. And with that, he started accusing me of talking to a man. And you know, just in that perspective, like, you know, he was just accusing me of so many things, and you know, some stuff, and trying to kind of down talk about her in a sense, and you know, and talking about her negatively in a sense, and all that, and try to kind of, you know, plant a seed to try and, but there was no, we had such a bond that it wasn't gonna break, you know. And she's the one that actually encouraged me through that whole ordeal, you know. So I thank God for her. Sorry. So let's move on, because I do have some more. I didn't really expect this to be too long, but I do just have a few videos. But you know, when you get into remembering all these things, when you actually see examples of it, it's wild. So another thing, let me take this off the screen, that I remembered was flying monkeys. And hold on. So let me share my screen. Okay, I'm gonna make it bigger.
The flying monkeys are those individuals who believe the narcissist. And this can include mutual friends, as well as friends who claim to want to remain neutral. And you simply cannot remain friends with these individuals. Maintaining friendships with people who choose to remain in contact with the narcissist violates your own no contact rule, period. Prior to the demise of that relationship with the narcissist, that narcissist launched a smear campaign against you. Anyone who believed those lies told by the narcissist is not your friend. They're the narcissist flying monkey. Remember that.
Yeah, so that was pretty much what happened with us. I could think of so many instances, but one that I feel was so invalidating to me was when a church sister that saw, like, even, you know, from the proposal time, and saw us together and always used to compliment us together and everything. And I kind of started talking to her, and she, you know, she was happy for me and everything. That I was getting married, and you know, all that. You know how church brethren can be sometimes. I remember when I moved, and I we were catching up, I believe, and she was like, "Oh, so what happened? I mean, so how's everything with, you know, your hubby and all this other stuff?" And then that's when I told her, I was like, "Oh, we're no longer together." She's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." And then I was like, I ended up going into telling her a lot of the things that I went through. I mean, you can only understand how, if you wouldn't even believe how many things happen in this relationship. I'm actually in the process of writing a book. I have a chapter out in a collaboration book called Blessed right now, and that chapter is just like snippets of things that I was put through um with this spouse. But now when I was telling her everything, this church sister, she was like, gasping and doing all that, and acting like if she empathized with me, whatever. But then at the end of all of that, she's like, "Oh, but you still don't think you can make it? You can't do it?" I was like, "Absolutely not." And that was one of the last times I really kind of talked to her on that level, because I was like, "Okay, if all that I told you, and when I tell you how toxic it was, and I've told you that, and you're still thinking that I should work this out with this man, you invalidated all of what I felt and went through, my experience, and documented at that." Because at some point, if you notice with the gaslighting, people tend to like start thinking that they have to record, because it's like, am I going crazy or is this for real? So I started recording a lot. So I had substantial evidence about this relationship. And when I tell you this and you're telling me, oh, if I can still work it out, absolutely not. Now you're gaslighting me. And I'm saying not everybody that gaslight is narcissistic. So I don't know. I wouldn't know like that. But just that whole fact that I'm telling you everything. And it was it was hurtful, because that lady, I was like, okay, I thought she cared about my safety as well. Like, we did have a bond to a certain extent. We sang together, and she kind of took me in like, a little church auntie. So, that was that invalidation was, it hurt. It really did. And I just kind of made space between her and I. Like, she'll post things online, and I'll, respond back in a sense, I guess, or whatever. But it wasn't the same after that. There's other times too where he was gaslighting, because I remember there was something where he took out a loan, and then I asked him why would he take it out without us talking about it and whatever, and he said he can do whatever he want, kind of stuff. And I remember he called a friend up, and the friend agreed with me, and he had a whole attitude when that friend agreed with me, because he put I said what I said in the background, and he had a whole attitude with that. It was just like he was still moving one unit, like, by himself. And that's usually how it is when you're dealing with highly narcissistic people. But now let's move on, because we have like just a few more. Like I have something called word salad. Now word salad, I had to get the video for, because it's hard to explain what it is. If you'll see by the next video, you'll see what I'm talking about. So let me pull it up. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so let me put it bigger.
Here's an example. Hey Billy, I want to talk to you about the way you yelled at me for forgetting to bring in the mail the other day. What? It was a reaction. You can't control reactions. Reactions are like the weather, you know, no one can control it. And speaking of control, you're always so controlling. You're trying to control me right now, but you can't even control your grades. You got a C minus last year. Do you remember that? No, of course you don't remember. You only remember the things you want to remember. You're just so negative. I'm really getting fed up with it. Okay, end scene. Like, what?
So if you saw that, he's like, the person that's supposed to be the narcissist represented with this word salad is basically like looping so many other things to kind of bring it back to fault on you, but it's like a whole lot of different things all over the place to try and bring the fault back on you. It's kind of crazy, but they do that, have you being like, what? What's going on here, you know? I think I did have like one more example of word salad, just in case, because that one's a little bit harder to explain in a sense for me, not for other people, but for me. Maybe. Oh, not that one, sorry. All right.
Hey babe, it's almost 7. Remember you say you're gonna take the dog out at 7? Here we go, you complaining again. I'm not complaining, I'm just reminding you. I don't need a reminder. You know who needs a reminder? Your mom needs a reminder. The other day, she said she needed help with her car. I went over there and she completely forgot about it. So if you're gonna remind anybody, remind her, not me. I don't need a reminder at all. I'm a master making schedules. I set up a whole schedule for my job. I bet you never set up any type of schedules. Are you serious? You know what? I'll take her out myself. Yeah, go do it. You see, you needed the reminder. Hey babe, it's almost 7. Remember you say you're gonna take the dog out at 7?
So if you notice,
here we go. You complaining again.
Remembering have
not
to do
complaining,
with what
I'm
the
just reminding you.
Was.
I don't need a reminder. You know who needs a reminder? Your mom needs a reminder. The other day, she said she needed help with her car. I went over there and she completely forgot about it. So if you're gonna remind anybody, remind her, not me. I don't need a reminder at all. I'm a master making schedules. I set up a whole schedule for my job. I bet you never set up any type of schedules. Are you serious? You know what? I'll take her out myself. Yeah, go do it. You see, you needed the reminder.
I mean, I'm gonna
it's almost
round
7.
it up a
Remember
little
you
bit
say
here, but I do want to talk about some things that they talk about in the narcissistic personality disorder realm, like on YouTube, things like that. Some psychologists will talk about things called gray rock, because sometimes it's so hard to deal with these people, but there's some of us who may still have to be around them, and this is about not only people with NPD, but toxic people in your lives or whatever, toxic family, toxic workplace. Sometimes it is hard to avoid people with this disorder or toxic people, period. So they gave some ways that you could kind of deal with it in a sense, or try to maintain a regular life as much as possible, which is something like like the gray rock method. The gray rock method is pretty much like when someone comes at you and try to get under your skin a little bit, but you're keeping it as like one word answers, bland, not engaging. So that's gray rock method. But then they also have some other extremes, and some other extremes, another extreme is called going no contact. Now, no contact, I don't know how that can be, because some people, they may have children with someone who's narcissistic, or a job. You can't really, unless you find another job, you may have to deal with people like this. So going no contact means no engagement, no talking to people that they're connected to in a sense, or giving them information, or engaging in that level. Like, there's no engagement. You're cutting it off cold turkey, not prolonging that abuse. So either way you take it, it's so funny because, well, I was about to say, either way you take it, just even seek counseling to deal with it. But I already had, with that thought in my mind, I thought it's so funny how sometimes the people that really are causing the trouble, the people that are causing the trouble, are the ones that are technically not seeking the help, and then the ones that they're affecting are the ones that, as a result, needs to kind of go through therapy. It's ironic. But I hope this shed light a little bit on the N word, narcissism. Definitely do your research. Not everybody you see that is contrary to what you want is narcissistic. But there are, if you want to look at the criteria in the DSM-5 or whatever level it's on now, please go check that out. Other than that, just watch yourselves out there. It's around us. We deal with people like this. It's even harder when it's people that you can't avoid necessarily. So just be safe, guard yourself, set your boundaries, and just mind your mind. All right, peace. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Till the next one. Bye.